Ray, my name is Charles Collins, and we're going to do an interview today about your experiences.
Uh-huh.
And uh, what's your full name, Ray?
Raymond Harry Fischer,
And Ray, where were you born?
born in Grand Rapids on Mason Street.
And Ray, as in your younger years, where did you go to school?
Well, I went to East Leonard until fifth grade, and then I went to Sibley School in the sixth grade, and then I went to Union High School, seventh, eighth, and around the ninth grade. Then at that time, we ended up over in Greenville on a farm that consisted of 220 acres. And I did a little farming there when I was in and out of school. And especially I did what you would call truck farming.
Sure.
And I went like vegetable, and I had gardens and sold tomatoes and potatoes and sweet corn. I even sold to Myers, the first store Myers had in Greenville. I sold to him and sold to the public, and boy, I thought I had the world by the tail when I got 15 cents for tomatoes a pound. That's really.
Ray, what kind of vehicles did you use to deliver those vegetables and things to
Well, I
Myers?
had a 36 Chevrolet with a rumble seat, and I opened up the rumble seat and put the crates of tomatoes and potatoes in there, and that's how I.
And that's how you delivered them. Huh?
Delivered them, yeah.
Okay.
Sweet corn, yep.
Yeah. And during the time that you were truck farming there, you had what kind of vegetables? Potatoes and tomatoes?
Potatoes, tomatoes, sweet corn, and even maybe a little bit of asparagus. Had that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
After high school then, and your experiences as a truck farmer, where did you go? Did you go to college?
No, right after high school, I got a job in Greenville, Gibson Refrigerator Company, making gliders. And I did that I had an afternoon shift. Then I worked the ground in the morning and went to work in the afternoon. So I had two jobs.
Uh-huh. So what kind of gliders were these that Gibson was making?
They were gliders to be pulled on with large planes for transporting troops to Europe. And
So they used those to invade Europe?
that's right, yeah.
Okay. Do you remember anything particular about those gliders? How big they were? How many fellows they would hold? And
I would say they'd hold probably a dozen. I know we hooked up the cables, and they had a nose cone in there that hinged in the front, and it opened up from the bottom up, and it had they had sleds or slides or skis for them to slide on the sand when they got there, supposedly. Yeah.
and were they a standard design, a military design, or was it something that Gibson had designed?
I don't know. I think it was a military project of some kind, and it was all it was is iron rods welded together, hollowed rods, and had a canvas cover. That's all it was.
Was the canopy covered, or did the guys have to ride in the open?
Oh no, it was all covered,
Was all
enclosed.
covered.
It was
It was
all
all
enclosed.
enclosed.
Yeah.
So they could go up pretty high then.
Oh yeah.
Ray, during that period of time, that obviously was after the Second World War started, or was it before?
No, this was before. Well, it was in the process of the world
Yeah.
because the world had already. I mean, the war has already been going on when I was in school yet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it was had the Lend-Lease, you know, and
I guess I forgot to ask you one thing. What year were you born? What was your birth date?
I was born in 1924,
Okay.
November the 27th.
November 27th.
Yeah, 1924.
Okay. During the your work at Gibson Refrigerator, building these gliders, did you run across any particular fellas that were characters that were kind of out of the ordinary guys that either pulled pranks or was real dedicated to doing things?
No, I don't remember of anything of that sort. No.
Okay.
Uh,
As you became a serviceman, were you enlisted or were you drafted?
well, I had a contract with Brown Seed Company, and to raise beans, about 5 or 10 acres, something like that. And I had to put them in the field, and had the beans all ready to harvest, and I got the notice to report to the
To the draft board?
draft board, yes. And well, my mother tried to get me deferred so I could harvest my beans, but there was no chance of it. They insisted that I go.
Okay, and so where were you inducted at?
I was taken down to Battle Creek, Fort Custer, and that's where I got my toothbrush and whatever necessary items I had to have to be in the service.
Okay, from Battle Creek, where did you take your basic training?
Took my basic training in Camp Gruber, Oklahoma, and they called the Rainbow Division.
Okay.
And I did my training there. Then I think I was, they allowed me to go home for a short time.
During your training and so on, what was the weather like in Oklahoma?
Well, it was fairly warm. Yeah. Well,
Did a little sweating when you was doing your
yeah.
exercises and so on?
I can't remember of having anything to do with snow.
Oh,
It might have been, but I
it
don't
does
remember.
snow in Oklahoma.
Yeah,
yes.
sure.
So what time of year would that have been?
God, that would be in October,
October
November,
of
December.
1943?
Yes, yes,
1943,
yeah.
October. As you were in your basic training area there, what was your lodging like?
Well, it was fairly decent. They had barracks similar to what you would have in Fort Custer.
Okay. Can you remember what kind of uniforms you wore then?
Khakis and olive drab.
Uh-huh. And
The
they
two-
were the everyday olive drab.
Was
Type
yeah,
of
every
uniform.
day, yeah, a kitchen duty and stuff
Uh-huh.
like that, yeah.
Okay. During your training, did you happen to take artillery practice and use
Well, we had small arms
small
fire,
arms?
and we had to go under barbed wire, and we had to crawl under small arms fire, machine gun fire of that sort. Yeah.
They would shoot right over top of you?
Over the top, yep. And
Uh-huh.
you had to stay down, yeah.
I bet you did.
Yep.
Yeah. What kind of guns? Do you remember the models and so
The
on?
M1 rifle. yeah.
M1 rifles.
Uh-huh.
Okay. During that time, what was your impression of your buddies? Was there any of them that were better marksmen than you, or did you come up with the top shots, or
I come up with a top.
you did?
Yes,
Okay.
I got my marksman rifle,
Uh-huh.
medal, you know, yeah.
Okay. Have any particular guys there that you remember that was outstanding? Or let's put it the other way, was there any guys there that was so bad they washed them out?
The only thing I remember is when they went to the quarters or wherever barracks were, that they would gamble. Yeah, I found out my stand there. I would not roll the dice, or I wouldn't play the cards, and I would side bet, and I ended up making money by side betting. And then I had the money, and the guys knew it, and they had borrowed the money, so I never had the money anyway. So I give that up.
Oh my. So there was a lot of personalities there, a lot of guys there that was having fun and gambling, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
at least in your off hours in the evening. Were you confined to barracks during your basic training?
Well, we went out in town a few times. I didn't go many times, but I did go to town once in a while. Yeah.
In Oklahoma, there might have been Indians from the reservations and so on in there. Did you happen to ever
Never had
encounter
any
of them?
contact with
Yeah.
them. Yeah. No, there was one fellow there that the Red Cross allowed him to go home, and his wife was having a baby, and he wanted to borrow some money, so I loaned him money. And he asked me if I wanted to take his Hamilton watch for security.
Sure.
No, I said, that's not necessary. Well, that was my mistake, because I never saw him again. By the time he come back, we
He was gone.
we were ordered out, and then we ended up in Camp Gruber, Oklahoma.
Okay.
No, I'll take that back. It was Camp Phillip, Kansas.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where we,
Uh,
before we went overseas.
While you were in Oklahoma,
Yeah.
and that would have been, how many weeks of basic training did they give you in '43? Do you remember?
Gee, I would say 3 months.
3 months.
3 months or
Yeah.
better, yeah.
And so then you were transferred to the camp in Kansas,
Yes, yes.
and let's talk about Oklahoma for a minute. Do
Okay.
you have any idea what big city that camp was near?
Killeen.
Killeen, Oklahoma?
No, wait a minute, I'm getting mixed up. No, I
No,
can't
don't
remember.
Was it near Tulsa or any
No,
of those cities?
my sister,
Mm-hmm.
she, her husband was at that camp, and she told me the town, and
Yeah, well,
I've lost it.
it's probably not the only thing we've lost in our
Yeah,
lifetime.
yeah.
Now, so you moved then from basic training to a camp in Kansas,
Yes,
and
Yep.
do you know whereabouts in Kansas?
no. All I know is
See,
Camp
there's
Phillip, Kansas.
Like there's a big city of Wichita, and there's a big city of Salina, and Fort Riley, Kansas.
Wichita sounds familiar,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
wouldn't say. No, I don't
Okay.
remember.
Uh,
I'd have to go back on the
Sure.
map and look.
Well, what do you
But-
say, we've been at this about 15 minutes now. What do you say
Yeah.
we take a little break and shut
Okay.
these things off?
All right.
Kind of just regroup. We won't tell the women that we're shutting this off.
No.
We're starting now. At your experiences at the time that you had just moved from Oklahoma to Kansas. So
Yeah.
what's your recollection as far as this move to Kansas? How long were you there?
Not too long, but it was. Well, let's see. It was in April that.
So that was April of '44.
Yes, by the time we left. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
By the time we left, between the time that I was there from Oklahoma to Kansas, I was in Kansas probably I would say a month or so,
Mm-hmm.
preparing to be going overseas.
Going overseas.
And those barracks were terrible.
Those weren't as good as you had in
Oh
Oklahoma, huh?
no. I was in similar barracks in the beginning after I was taken prisoner, and they were nothing to
The
brag
big
about.
Army post in Kansas, the Army fort in Kansas is Fort Riley. Did it happen to be Fort Riley?
No,
Okay.
Camp Phillip, Kansas.
Camp Phillips.
Camp Phillips, yeah.
Okay. Do you recall anything besides, what were the barracks made out of at that time? Do you know? Were they wooden barracks or?
Well, they might have had some wood on them, but the outside shell was tar paper.
Was it?
Tar paper. I got pictures of it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Uh,
And they had, for sidewalks, they had wooden slats. That's what you walked in. If you didn't walk in mud, you
so,
walked.
yeah, anybody that you know got hurt on them wooden slats?
No.
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 They,
No.
at that time, in these barracks that obviously were not very good,
No.
do you recall any of the fellows complaining, or what some of the other fellows think about that?
That didn't hurt one way or the other. No.
Were you then? Did you then disembark for Europe after you left Kansas?
After we went from Kansas, yes, we went to New York to aboard a boat
Aboard
or a ship. Yeah.
How did you get to New York?
By train.
By train?
Yep.
And what kind of a train was that? Was it a diesel engine or a steam engine, or do you remember?
I would say steam engine, and it was no dining cars.
No dining
No
cars.
dining cars. It was strictly
So it's a
coach.
couple of day trip to New York from Kansas, isn't it?
That I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't remember.
I was just wondering how you got anything to eat.
Oh, I think it was like a box lunch.
Yeah, they give you a box lunch. Okay.
Yeah.
That was probably thrilling food at that time.
Yes, it was something.
You bet.
Yeah.
During the trip on the train to New York, do you remember the kind of uniforms and so on you had to wear then?
Oh, I would say our khakis that we had on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your impression at that time about the other guys? How many guys was on that train? Do you have any idea?
No.
Didn't notice how many cars were connected there or
No.
anything? As you went from New York, you obviously went through a center in New York that then got you organized and go to a ship.
Yes.
Do you remember the name of that ship?
No, I don't.
Being in the Army probably didn't concern you a heck of a lot.
No, it really didn't.
Yeah. What was the weather like in going overseas then?
Well, in some spots it was rough. There was a fella on there that smoked a pipe, and he had like a salt shaker covered on the pipe, so he didn't have no sparks or nothing like that. And he says, this weather don't bother me. And he was up there on the upper deck looking out over the ocean. And before you know it, he was ready to flip his cookies. And he went inside. But no, I was out there, and it was a convoy of boats going over to Europe. And I don't know, 50, 100 ships. And I could not see the boat or the ship that was close to us.
That's
The
right.
waves were that high, it covered it completely. You couldn't see it.
But you didn't get too sick?
No seasick, no.
No seasickness. That's great, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no wonder.
What was the food like on the way over there, on the boat? Was it
Oh, I wouldn't complain about that, no.
not bad at all? Huh?
No.
And
There was an entertainer on the boat that sang on the sunny side of the street. I never forgot that. And the entertainers here in the States, whether it was Bob Hope or Sinatra, they gave cigarettes, packages of cigarettes away as their part of the war, I guess. Effort.
The you have entertainment every night during the
Oh
during
no,
the
no,
trip
no,
over?
no.
Just a little bit.
Just once in a great while, yeah.
Where did the boat land?
As I remember, it was Liverpool, England.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were then stationed in England?
Yes, we were in tents for about a month, April, May, yeah.
That's the name of the town? Or is that the type of building? Is it
No,
tents was a building?
No, we were in tents.
Yeah.
Just
Like-
out in the field.
Yeah,
with,
like out
regular,
in the field.
tents that carried maybe eight GIs.
Okay.
Where had cots in there. That's it. Yeah.
So how was the weather there? Was it pretty muddy or
No, it was all right.
was all right? Was pretty
Okay.
good?
Yeah.
And you were there about a month?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, yeah.
And that must have been coming up on a big push to cross the channel and get
Yes.
the French rescued.
Yep. We left there, got on another boat, and went down to, I don't know if it was the channel or the other one, but anyway, it's the furthest one over from France. There's two channels there, and we went down the channel and real early in the morning, and they dropped boat or anchor by Brest Peninsula, and we climbed over rope net that was on the boat, and you was to climb over the boat and then crawl down the net to a landing barge, and that's where we hit the beach, with a landing barge. And of course the barge never got up to the coast or the shore, so we had to wait in the water for a bit to get on the sandy
On
beach.
shore?
Yeah, with the barbed wire and crossed pieces of sawhorse, you know. Yeah.
The at that time, when you got off the boat and onto the landing barges, were you under fire at that time?
Yes, there was some fire. We was actually the second wave, so it wasn't as bad as the first wave.
Yeah.
The company that I was with, I don't know how it happened, but the captain, he decided that I come up with a kitchen crew, and that's where I was with the group.
You was with the
Yeah.
kitchen crew, so you could bleach.
Until I got on the beach, yes.
Uh-huh.
As soon as I got on the beach, I was sent to our regular company in platoon group.
Yeah, you were an infantryman then.
The
at that-
infantry, yeah, yes.
And as you went up on the beach, then you were under some fire.
Some fire, yeah.
What did the fire sound like? Do you know? Do you remember?
No.
Just
There
lots
was
of-
so much activity there, you weren't interested except getting to a place where you got covered.
get your head down so that you didn't get shot.
Yes.
Can you recall what this looked like as you went onto the beach?
It looked like a place that I wondered if I would ever see United States of America again.
Really?
I never saw a hot dog stand, no ice cream stand, or nothing. It was just
Just
wilderness.
barbed wire and wilderness.
Wilderness, yeah.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about where you went after you got onto the beach and what happened during that period of time.
Well, we was on the beach until July the 3rd. And in that time, we went on to a lot of morning patrols and night patrols, and until that, and in those patrols, one of the fellows stepped on a mine, landmine,
Yeah.
and blew his foot off, and the captain or lieutenant, an officer, he got killed with a booby trap that the Germans had set.
Mm-hmm.
And we lost a few of the men while we were detained until they brought in more supplies and equipment, you know, until they was ready to make another attack. And then, and on the 3rd of July, we made that attack. And the fella, he was gonna crawl on his hands and knees in front of me. I was moving on my all fours and scraping my belly. And he got hit right in front of me. And we did some more crawling. And finally we got down in the marsh area. And it was probably 4 or 5, maybe 4 foot of water.
Yeah.
And when I got in that water, I crouched down, so my eyes were the only thing was above that water, and my helmet.
Mm-hmm.
And I survived that under machine gun fire.
Boy.
There was bullets flying. Oh yeah, and we got through that. And as I remember, I think it was in the marsh area, and we dug in, and up on a hill there was some Germans that were shooting anti-aircraft guns,
Oh my, yeah.
and they were shooting in the trees. They shot in the trees, and then the flak would come down. And how I missed it, I don't know. So many, several got wounded that way by that flak, but I never got hit, never got touched. And it was from then on, then it was hedgerow fighting.
Yeah.
And
So
then
what was your reaction at that time that all of this shooting and stuff was going on? Did you think about what was going to happen, or
just being able to survive.
yeah, just kind
Just
of
to
survive,
survive, yes.
figure out how to get the heck out of there, huh?
No, not the heck out of there. You had to protect yourself to what was coming at you. Yeah.
And what happened as you went along there? Now, can you put this in a context of time? Is this before or after D-Day, and before or after like the Battle of the Bulge, or?
Oh, it was after D-Day, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That was after. We was already on the beachhead,
Yeah.
and we in a position to attack. And then the Germans, if we held position, the Germans fell back.
Uh-huh.
If we attacked and held position, you cannot retreat. I never once can say I retreat, anytime,
Good.
all through the war. And I was up there in front line from June, July, August, September. And in September, I think I had about 10 days that I was considered behind the lines.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I paid for it when we went back on the front line.
Yeah.
And then it was October, November, December, and we were supposed to have been the first troops that entered Germany.
Okay.
And that was in the southern part of Germany, right next to Switzerland.
Okay.
Okay.
And as you arrived into that area, do you recall any of the cities that you went through, or before you got into Germany?
Well, I can remember, well, the hedgerow business,
Mm-hmm.
and they wasn't allowed to use tanks because they figured they was too vulnerable. And I know once that the Germans fired artillery shell, not artillery, mortar shells at us, and they dropped over and just went over the hedgerow and down, and I saw a couple of them land, and they were getting closer to me, so I decided the next one was coming right where I was at, so I moved over, and by golly, I had it figured right, because those mortar shells are shot with a tripod, see?
Mm-hmm.
And I suspected that any change, they'll put them in there, you know, and they'll fire, they'll put another one in there, and if the tripod shifts, the leg shifts, it's going to move that direction.
Sure.
So that's what I had suspected anyway, and that's my thought. So I survived that part. Then part of that time I was scout, and they had me was going to attack. Went over the hedgerow, and I got out about 100 yards or more, and the machine gun started firing, and I hit the ground, and I laying on the ground, and I looked back, and the troops that were just coming over the hedgerow, they turned and left. So I would say, well, I'll stay right here, and they'll call for artillery and knock out that machine gun, see?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I laid there all day long, and there wasn't an artillery shell fired, nothing. And so after dark, I crawled on my hands and knees, no, not hands and knees, on my stomach, and I headed for the hedgerow over to the right of me. And I followed that all the way back, and I got on a road, and I followed that road a ways, and I come to a house, and they had a dog there, and the dog heard me, and he barked. And I thought, uh-oh, them Germans got that house zeroed in. So I headed back, further yet. And finally I figured it was far enough, and I got in a ditch, and I moved the leaves away, and I laid down my raincoat, and I put my gun up a ways from him, up on my head, and covered that up. Then I covered myself up with leaves, and I went to sleep. Following morning, I woke up and headed further back, and during that day, I come up to some mechanized group. Apparently they're artillery group, and I told them where I was from, what company I was with, and they saw to it that I got back to the company.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Let's take another little break here and
All right.
see how we're doing as far as time is concerned here. As we continue, where we'd left off was you was in the ditch all covered up with leaves and your gun covered up and so on. And
well, yeah. Well, then I got up in the early morning, and I headed back towards, I figured, where the troops were. So I don't know, it was the middle of the day that I made contact with the fellows with the jeeps and so on. And they want to know who I was and where I was from and so on. And I told them. And it wasn't long, a couple hours, 3 hours, why I would have been back to where the company that I left.
so now, what was that company?
That was the 79th Division, 315th Division, F Company.
Okay, 79th Division?
79th Division, yeah.
And then
That was the Lorraine Cross
okay.
patch, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And the F Company?
F Company.
Okay, and where did you go with the F Company then?
Well, we were held there that night, and of course I asked the sergeant, I said, I'll stay on this side of the hedgerow where there was 3 enough for 3 men there to stand guard. So if you got 3 men, you have more sleeping time, see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was a stubborn fellow. And he said, no, you go on the other side. So I stood guard half the night, and the other fellow the other half.
Do you remember what that sergeant's name was?
No, I don't remember. He was a blonde-headed fellow. That's all I can remember. His name, I don't remember.
Okay.
But anyway, at that night, a mortar shell hit the foxhole that I would have wanted to be in.
Oh.
So he
So-
did me some good.
So again, the fate kind of helped you get
Yes,
through
he
that
sure
war.
did. Sure
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
The what did the hedgerow look like that you were there?
It served the purpose of a fence,
Okay.
and it was a mound of dirt, probably 4 or 5 foot high, and then there was a lot of brush growth on top of that, which made it probably a wall of 10 foot high. Yeah,
Okay.
or more.
And that was just on the edge of Germany, or was that what country?
No,
was
that's
that
in France.
That was in
That
France.
was in France, yes.
Mhm. So as you progressed on through France and went on to Germany, do you recall what went on at that particular period of time?
Well, when I was still in France there, the some of the ditches of France, were rather stinky.
Yeah.
And some of the houses there, they had a picture window like that, not maybe that big, but anyway, they had mounds of manure right in their front yard.
Yeah.
And then they had a side yard, which was boarded off, fenced off for the cattle.
Yeah.
And then back of the house was a barn. So the people there, when they were in the side yard, they wore their wooden shoes. I got a pair around here somewhere that come from there. The wooden shoes, and they had slippers. So they put the slippers in the wooden shoe, and then when they got on the porch, they left the wooden shoe on the porch and walked in the house with a slipper. That's the way they worked it.
That's the way they worked it.
Yeah.
So the side yard was what we would call a barnyard.
Barnyard, yep, yep. Holding
I
corral for
assume
cattle.
that they piled this manure up around their house for insulation in the cold weather.
No, they had their farming land was in one spot, and their houses were in another.
I see.
Yeah.
And their cattle end was housed right near their house in a barn in the side barnyard.
Yeah. And then we, as we went through France, we were south of Paris. And I saw where the trenches were still there from World War I.
Oh, really?
Yes. And I thought, well, why don't they allow us to go in through Paris, march through Paris for the news, see?
Yeah.
Oh, no. They put fresh troops, march, right like they were supposed to, you see.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the fellas would hang in their guns over their shoulder to the right or to the left, and it wasn't orderly fashion, see.
So they put fresh troops in there.
Oh, yes, to march through
march through
Paris.
Paris.
Yeah. Now, Paris was off limits, you
Yeah.
see. No defense there. That was never destroyed, never touched. Yeah. From the Germans or from the Americans to the Germans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you then left France, and did you get on into Germany?
Oh, yes, yes. We got all through France there and entered Germany at the southern tip towards Switzerland, right close to Switzerland.
Okay. And what went on at that time? Can you pinpoint that as to what what battles were, what of the named battles were happening then? Do you know?
Well, prior to that time, we, in November, we were called up to the Belgium, to the Maginot Line, French Maginot Line. And we went about 180 miles, as I remember, that they said. I don't know. But anyway, that's what they said, 180 miles. And we rode on top of tanks, that distance.
Yeah.
And we got up there, and the siege was all over with.
Okay.
And so it wasn't too hard to survive up there. And then I went through the tunnels that they had dug underneath, and they had miniature railroad cars that hauled the ammunition that they were supposed to use. As it turned out, it was never used. The big guns were, the Cosmoline was in there, in the barrels, and the turrets were machine guns. Every other one was a machine gun turret, and they were there. They had metal bunk beds there, but no mattresses were in there, and they had steel wire spring mattress, I suppose, or bedding, yeah. And no mattresses on the beds, but they left it without being used.
Yes, without being used.
Without being used, yeah.
And you went on then, and you went back to France at that point after you did
Then,
that?
yeah, we went back into France and fought through from one town to another. And I can remember on top of one hill, we was supposed to attack a pillbox. It was supposed to be heavy guarded, and it turned out the Germans decided not to defend that pillbox, and they were back. They retreated back into down in the village down below. Well, as we were approaching that pillbox, we had overhead friendly fire, and I told the fella, I said, now, if you see a tracer, don't get underneath that tracer. Stay off to one side or the other. And well, he didn't pay no attention to what I told him, and he got hit from our own people. Well, we still approached the pillbox, and like I say, there was nobody defending it. But when we got on top of that hill, we found the enemy was there, down in the hollow, and they shot. They had machine gun fires, two mounted, and they had crossfire, which they did many a times when I was scouting. And well, anyway, everybody took cover, and one fellow we called Tiny, he wanted to go over to see somebody else jump over the fence. Well, he got killed jumping over the fence. And he
What was your thoughts as stuff like that was going on? I'm sure that you were concerned then about your own safety, and obviously you were quite a thinker on what to do.
well, the Germans had dug cross ditches from one cross way anyway, so they could be covered any direction that somebody approached them. And well, I stayed in a ditch and moved around until we got towards the edge of the hill that go down to the village, and we were stationed there. They called up other tanks to come up to forge ahead into the village. Well, the tank come ahead, crossed one of the ditches, and we had orders to move out. Well, we were supposed to follow the tank. Well, the tank didn't move, so I stayed in the ditch. Well, some of the fellows got up and got right behind the tank, and the guy in the tank put the thing in reverse instead of forward. And you know what happened with some of the GIs there?
Yeah.
They got rolled over. Yeah.
So then, At what point did you move on into Germany then?
Well, they, well, no, wait. They
No, you were still in France at that time?
He's still in France, yeah. And they, another hour or two, they brought up another tank. And he put that thing in high gear, and we went right in there on the run. And we got in there, and the Germans had retreat. They withdrew.
You withdrew.
Yeah, no fire. We went right down in the town with no problem at all. Yeah. But that.
So
that
how did the people in the town then receive you as troops? Were they at all out in the streets or happy or?
No. Well, there is towns that we went through. Chocolate, and then they wanted silk socks. You know, they liked silk socks and chocolate. And one time we was in France, and one of the sergeants at that time, he was quite a drinker, and one of the fellows that were there, the native of the country, he had a bottle of liquor, and this fella, I can't remember his name, his nose a pug nose, anyway, I can't remember. Anyway, he took a big chunk of it, and oh, it burned all the way down. He had enough of that. Yeah. But in the beginning of the war, the invasion, we were told that the water, the Germans poisoned some of the water, so we weren't allowed to drink the well water. So the French had big 500-gallon barrels, wooden barrels of hard cider. So we filled gas cans with hard cider. So that's what we used for water.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well, that was good, I bet. You got happy on that.
Well, one fella got too happy. And he went in there like bold guy, Mize, recalls it. Anyway, I think his name was Mize. And he went into the building, and as big as he was ready to shoot anybody. But he got over it. And down underneath the beds, they had baskets with cognac in.
Okay.
And we sampled that, but that's what they carried under the bed.
Bottles of cognac.
Cognac inside of a basket, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this was still in France.
Young branch, yes.
Okay, so you spent quite a bit of time in France.
Oh, several months, yeah. And like I say, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, and sometime, well, end of December and January is when we entered Germany. Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of activity.
Yeah.
Even we had taken a hill, I believe, and they had bombarded that hill, and there was Germans laying all over, and they had their lunch bucket. Now, they weren't fed too good, but they were fed better than the Germans, the Russians. They had better supplies, but they weren't the best.
The Russians you didn't think had good food?
No, they took food as they went. They supplied themselves locally.
I see.
As they went, yeah. Yeah.
So then, as you went on into Germany, do you remember what towns you went to?
Schweighausen, as I remember.
Okay.
The place was on fire. And we got into a building, and we was gonna sleep there. Inside a roof. The first time with a roof over our head. Otherwise, all out on the open.
Yep.
And when the ground was frozen, we laid on top of the ground. When it was in the marsh, we was laid on top of the marsh. And when it was in a foxhole, we stayed in a foxhole. And sometimes I even took a pill and scooped up the moisture from the bottom of the foxhole and then put it in my canteen and drank it.
Oh, yes.
Oh yes, yes.
Well, they wouldn't be poisoned, would it?
No, no, no. But oh, what's that?
So, as you went into this town and so on,
Oh, yeah. Then we got in this building and we got all laid out, and well, it was on the floor or where I don't remember. But we were gonna bed down inside of a building, and it was after midnight. Paul Duncan, he was our platoon leader. He started out as a private, and he ended up being a second lieutenant. Well, I ended up being sergeant, and I was a private too. Anyway, he went and got orders from the colonel or somebody. He was up and away, somewheres in some room, I don't know where. But anyway, he come back and said, we're ready to move out. And we went on this patrol. And he got his orders. He followed them right to the T, as I see it. And we went through an orchard. We went through some open field. We got onto a gravel road, and we marched down the road. And Duncan heard something. He said, "Who goes there? Who's there? Come forward." So, 3 phrases. And he got his answer, which was a burp gun. Now,
oh my.
this whole platoon was supposed to be 36 men, but it was probably 20 or 24 at the time, because we would never pull. We lost men from every event. Well, anyway, they shot. Well, they were on an outpost about, I don't know, 10 or 15 yards, probably from where the church was, across the road. Church was here, and the outpost was here, and here's Duncan, and their only reason we could have been mowed down at waist height is because they had their soldiers on the other side of the road. And I found it out when I went around the corner of this one brick building. And I run right smack dab in three Russians, or Germans. And one put this rifle right up within 3 inches of my nose. And boy, I grabbed that with my right hand and pulled it down like that. So if he pulled the trigger, he wouldn't get me. So, well, I was the first one taken prisoner. And they took me
platoon?
of this platoon, and which was probably 20 or 24 people. And the Germans, the 3 Germans, they took me to their, in the meantime I was throwing out souvenirs that I had accumulated out of my pack, my pockets and everything. And they got me into a building that a German could talk English. He says, "Are you cold?" I said, "No." He said, "Are you hungry?" "No." "Are you something else?" Anyway, there was 3 phrases there. And, well, he talked to Germans, the troops, the German soldiers, and they marched me out down the street almost to where I was taken prisoner. And to a church. And this church, they took me down the basement. And when I got down the basement, there's Germans laying on the floor, laying on a little cot that's probably 6 inches off the floor. And some of the German troops were laying on top of furniture, on a desk, laying on top of that. and anyway, the Germans communicated one back and forth, and I didn't know what they said. And he marched me into a fruit cellar that the Germans had. And they had me guarded by one GI, or German. And this German soldier had been into New York, and he could speak a little English. And he didn't like New York. He said everything was going too fast. And I said, well, the United States is not all like New York. They're all not moving this way and that way, see, all at once. Well, and he said he was in the German Navy for 5 years, and they put him in the infantry, and he didn't like that. Yeah. He liked the Navy better, see. Well, the more we talked about that, and they brought in another GI. Well, this Paul Duncan that was the lieutenant that was in charge of this patrol, he was captured. And there was 5 or 6 others.
Okay.
I got their names and their addresses at the time they were in the service. Yeah.
Okay. And as they had you there in the church, evidently a fruit cellar or something.
Yeah.
How long did you stay there?
Until morning.
Till morning.
And then we left out of there as a group, and we were guarded, and we left the church and maybe down the road, maybe a quarter of a mile or so. And there was a group out in the field, had either an anti-tank gun or something. Anyway, one of them says, he yelled out, he said, "Long ways to Berlin." And what are you going to do? They say nothing.
Yeah.
So we just marched and marched, and we went from one place to another. We went into a place where there was different nationalities. And it was like a cattle country or a livestock guard, see, or corral. And they had fences here, and there was people there, and people over here. And there was like a sheltered stock place, you know, a small one that had straw in and a little cover for the animals. Not a complete barn, but there was barns there. But anyway, we was out in this yard that they had them all separated. And oh yes, I forgot. Back before that, they took us into after we left this church, we went into a house, and the guy took us down the basement, and he told the guys that were there, he told everybody to unpack their pack. And everything with cigarettes was piled up separately. And he says, "Don't you think it's all right that I keep half your cigarettes? What are you going to do?"
Right.
So that was acceptable. So somebody got 3 cigarettes where they had nothing at all, and some got, maybe had a whole pack and still got only 3. So everybody was divided equally, no matter what you had. So that was acceptable. Well, then we went further back, we did some more marching, and we got into a house, or barn, and we were guarded there. And then we went for interrogation. And this place, it was after sundown. We went into a house, and he talked to person, each one individually, one at a time. And he got to me, and I didn't know where the rest of them went. We never saw him again. I went in there, and he says, "Who's your company commander?" I says, "You know just as much about it as I do." He says, "You want to eat, don't you?" "Yeah." "Who's your company commander?" I says, "You know just as much about it as I do." He says, "You want a place to sleep?" "Yep." He says, "Who's your company commander?" I said, you know just as much about it as I do. He got out a book about like that and about that thick. He opens it up. He got to the Lorraine Cross. And he says, you trained in Camp Grouper, Oklahoma. You went to Camp Phillip, Kansas. You went to New York. You arrived in New York at such and such a date. You were on such and such a boat. You arrived in England and such a date. He knew everything. He knew more than I ever got.
Oh.
Well,
So he had a book that had all of this information in it?
well, he had a book of all the insignias
Yeah,
the United States ever had ever thought of. And the rest of the information, they gathered
themselves.
themselves, yes. Yeah.
Well, they were
So-
pretty good at getting information, weren't they?
Oh, you betcha. And then they let me go, and I got out of there, and the guard me. He told me to go out to the road, and he followed me. Now, as I went down this gravel road, I thought of, now this is my time to escape. And then I thought, now I don't know if he's ready to shoot me or what, and how anxious he would be to if I tried to run, because I didn't turn around and look back. And then I thought, where am I going to go? How am I going to get there? So I decided to just play along. So I went up the next hill, and he motioned me to go to the left. Went in there.
The place where the Germans had captured you, and you were being interrogated, and you found out that they really had books and data that was far beyond what you expected, and it was willing to tell them anyway.
Yeah.
So they pretty well knew all about you by the time you got,
Yes.
by the time you were captured.
Yes. Yeah. And that was not very long afterwards either, for them to get up that information. And
So where did you go from there?
well, to remember is hard too, but as I remember, we was in a jail house.
Mm-hmm.
They took us in there, and we used our army helmet as a soup bowl, and they give us some soup. And I think we got word of Roosevelt died at that time. They had airplanes strafing the town, and I knew that was going on. Well,
Whose airplane? Our airplanes was straight from the
yes,
town at that time?
American
While you were
airplane.
captured right there in a
yes.
building you thought was a jail?
Yeah, it was a jailhouse. Used as a jail anyway, yeah. But we were in there. And from there we did some more marching, as I remember. And then eventually we ended up on boxcars.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in boxcars for 3 days. And over those 3 days we were given no water. We were given a slice of thick bread, about like that, and some blood sausage. Now, I would never eat blood sausage, but I ate it then. And we got off the railroad car, and then I don't remember, and how we ended up getting in this camp. But we must have marched to it. And then we were in barracks, like Kansas. They weren't much. And we were allowed to lay head to foot on the floor. And we were all on this floor, probably 100 into this barracks. We were allowed 1 coal brick an hour. That's what we were allowed.
To keep warm with.
To keep warm. Now this is in January, February. And after about 2 or 3 weeks, we were shifted to other quarters, and they were a little better. They had straw bunks. So somebody was on the lower bunk and upper bunk, but they had straw mattress. And there we stayed the rest of the, till we was liberated by
Okay,
the
so
Russians.
what did they call those, that particular place where you was at? Did it have a name or?
Stalag 4B.
4B.
Stalag 4B, yes.
Okay.
The,
So while you were in Stalag 4B, you slept on bunk beds, but the mattresses were made of straw.
straw, yeah.
Okay. What did they feed you then?
They give us a daily ration was 1 slice of bread, about 7 or 8 small potatoes, real small, like marbles, or jawbreakers, yeah. And we had maybe the quantity of a small Campbell can of soup.
Okay.
And that was either a potato soup, it was rice soup, pea soup, I don't know another one. There's another one in there. But anyway, it was of course more water than bulk. And out of that daily ration, we had a bowl of it once every 3 days. I did anyway.
Okay.
And during that,
What were their latrines like?
you had to walk out and go to a master building that had latrines in it, yeah, yeah.
And
But they weren't flushables or nothing, they
I
were
bet not.
outside, yeah.
the what did you wear at that time?
Our regular,
They gave you just the regular clothes you had on when you were captured, or?
yep, when we got in this camp, they had us take all our clothes off. And of course, you didn't know what was going to happen, and they fumigated the clothes, and they give us a size of a washcloth to wash us off, dry us off, and everything else. My wife has a fit when I use a washcloth to dry me off and everything else. They're not a great big bath towel, yeah, but that's what we had.
Okay.
And yeah. And then we got our clothes back, and that's what we wore, regular.
Did you have an opportunity at all to wash them any time then, or not?
I don't remember of it.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember of ever getting the clothes washed or nothing.
The other 100 guys that was in the same area, in the same barracks, I guess you'd call it, with you in this camp, do you remember anything about any of them? Who they were, or where
The
they
only
were from?
only ones I really know is the ones that were captured at the time that
With
I
you.
was captured. The rest of them, no, I wouldn't know their names. I do know that one little Frenchman, his nationality was French. Now, I don't know if he was American, French, or what, but I know he fought because somebody took his potato peelings. He decided that the potatoes he got, he peeled them, and he was going to save them till later. Well, the other fella thought that he peeled them off and he didn't want them. So I can see where the other fella thought that he had a right to them, but the other fella, he decided that somebody took his potato peelings. And boy, could he kick. He didn't have to use his fist. He just kicked. Yeah.
I'll be darned.
But in that prison camp that we were in, every so often a guy would come in at night and give us the lowdown on the position of our troops. So he could tell us where the Russians were, he could tell us where the Americans were, and the Americans held up. The Americans could have liberated that camp, but they, for some reason or other, decided not to. And the Russians. One morning, or one night we saw the guards up there on their post, and that day we saw Germans with their baby buggies and everything they could move, headed towards the Americans. And the next morning, we heard shooting past us towards the American side.
Mhm.
So we thought, uh-oh, the Russians bypassed the camp. And that's what happened. Well, while they bypassed the camp, we went through the hole in the fence. And we went down this little village, and there was a bakery in a house. And in this wall, basement wall, he had his oven. And he brought out them doggone loaves. They were about that big around and about that high, rounded up like that. And we told him, I says, would it be all right if we took one loaf apiece? So the fellas, I don't know, 4 or 5 guys decided to go out. And we went down this town and we took a loaf. He agreed to it. And we didn't take any more. We didn't take all he had. We just took one for ourselves. And was that good bread to us? Oh, that was good. And that's the same thing with, we was in France. We went into a basement, and in this basement, down the stairs, this woman had canned beef. And anyway, there's a lot of lard on top, you know. I didn't care for that. But I dipped into it. And I tasted a little bit on the meat. Oh, that was good. that lard and the meat, that was all good. That
So
was
as
really
you
something.
went down into this town, did you then go back to the camp, or had you escaped at that point? You know, when you
No.
remember, you said the Russians came in, and
Oh,
you guys
yeah,
broke
yeah.
through the fence and went to this little town and went to the
Yeah.
bakery.
Yep. And then it wasn't very shortly after that, maybe a few days, that the GIs come in with
Okay.
their jeeps. And,
So was you still out of the camp then, or did
No,
you?
no,
you
we went back at the
You
camp.
went back
We
to
went
the
back.
camp.
Went back there. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was the only time we was out. And
Uh-huh.
while we was out, or headed back to the camp, prison camp, we saw a Russian wagon.
Mhm.
And boy, they got hold of some pigs, and they were squealing. They put them in that wagon and rode off with it. Of course, that was those people's livelihoods.
Yes.
But no, as they took towns and took cut of land, they took their feed with them.
Yeah, as you said, they
Yes.
scavenged their feet as they
Yeah,
went along.
as they went along, yeah.
Yeah. So then, a few days later, the Americans came into the area where your camp
Yes,
was.
with jeeps, and they marched us out there. We walked, and they rode their jeeps real slow, and we ended up into a college. And then we were stationed at this college, and we had bunk beds there. We had living quarters anyway. That was far superior. We had anything else before. Well, then we were told that the Americans were coming after us. So we waited, and in the meantime, I went out and went into to a German house that was unoccupied, and that's where I got my my money that I had.
I see.
And I picked up some money and a few other odds and ends, and we got to a stairway, and up the stairway there was Russians up there, and they looked down at us, and they wanted to know if we were English. No, American. And then that sober face had a smile on it. When they found out we was American, they had a smile. But when they wondered if we were English, there was no smile. No. So there was something brewing there. I don't know what.
Something even then.
Yeah, yeah.
They, so then you were in this college,
Yeah.
and what kind of buildings did that college have? Was it a regular campus like would be here in this country? Or
Yeah,
old
they had
buildings?
several buildings,
Yeah.
yeah, several buildings around it. And I would say it took up probably 2 or 3 acres.
Okay, and the officers and that sort of thing, were they were all American then at that college where you were staying?
Well, they were all prisoners.
Oh, they were all prisoners.
Except the guards.
Mhm.
The 2 officers or whoever they were, they came to the camp to direct us out of there.
Okay.
Well, then,
So you really, at that point, you were liberated.
yes. But we couldn't leave there without the consent of the Russians. And at first, the Americans come to take us out, the Russian says, "You're not the right person to sign off the prisoners."
Okay.
Well, then it was the next trip, the Americans that were the right authority to sign off, but the Russians weren't there. So the Americans left. So that was enough of that. So 3 or 4 of us decided that we would get on bicycles, that we concocted up, we got a frame here and a wheel there, and we put together at least 4 bikes. And one of the fellas, I think it was Cruz, Tom, anyway, his name was Cruz, he turned back. So end up 3 of us took our bicycles and headed for about 30 miles to the Americans. And after we got to the bridge there, the guy said, looked at us, he said, "Are you Americans?" We says, "Yes." And boy, he come and picked up our bikes, walked the plank all the way across the river, and we followed him on his plank because he was working on the bridge. And then we had meals. Everything was pretty well settled.
Pretty well taken care of then.
Yes, yeah.
See, now, that was not in Berlin, though.
No, but it was in Germany.
It was close to Berlin, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was in between.
Yeah.
You see, there's Berlin, Frankfurt, and Dresden. Those places in there.
Mm-hmm. And after you stayed there, you came back to this country?
Yes. First we went. I think we flew out of there, and
Okay.
we went to France.
Okay, you went back to
France,
then,
I think, yeah. And I think from France, we must have come back by boat, because I don't remember. I know we flew from Germany to France, but I don't even remember what boat we was on or how we got here, but I know we got here.
Well, you was probably pretty anxious to get home by that time.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, when I was taken prisoner, that morning that I walked out, when the German said it's a long ways to Berlin, my mind, it just went like it was flushed. The war's over for me, see? Yeah.
Yes, I bet you thought that,
Yeah.
very sure. Well, you just mentioned what your reaction to that was. Looking back, on the whole experience of the Second World War and your experiences in the action in France and then being captured as a prisoner of war, what do you feel you gained for that in later life? Anything at all? Was that something that you?
Well, I tell you, the experience I've had with military orders, when you're just attacking, that's one thing. But when you're set out to do something, and when they tell you this situation or that situation, most likely it's not the truth. we were told that we would take a town, and it was just a skeleton crew guarding the town. You should have seen the prisoners they took out of that town. It is true that I think there were more Polish people that were inducted in the German army,
Yes.
and they were not willing to fight. So we survived that. And
So you became a survivor then at that point?
at that point, yes.
You bet.
And one time I carried anti-tank grenades, and there was a town that we was approaching, and a German Jeep was coming along down a slope, see? He was coming, and it was a blacktop road, and the fellas heard it, see? And they grabbed my gun, put it on the ground, grabbed an anti-tank grenade off my belt, stuck it in, and fired the rifle. The thing went up, hit the ground, or hit the road, and bounced up against the radiator of the Jeep. It never went off.
Never went off.
It never went off. And you see those fellas put that thing in reverse. Holy mackerel, and turned around and almost like a deer. Turned around and running. Oh yeah, they really moved that. Yeah, they survived that one. And from that point on, I was carrying those anti-tank grenades. And I don't know from this day if the fellas pulled all the pins on the grenades or not. But it was sometime later, days later, when we was in a position to be qualified for new shoes. And it was in September. I believe it. It was September, and anyway, I looked down at I was sitting down, and I looked at the anti-tank grenade, and there's no pins there.
Oops.
So I took it over to the captain. I said, "Hey, what do you want me to do with these?" "Get away from here," he says. "Get away. Bury them." So I went over by a tree, dug a hole, and buried them. Now I hope the Frenchman don't dig them up.
Don't dig them up. Oh my.
Yeah.
Given your experiences as of all of these things during the Second World War, how did you feel, and what did you feel that how you fit into this whole scheme of things as it happened? Did you feel like you played an important part?
Well, all I can say is that I was one of the individuals that held the American line.
Sure.
That's all I can say. I'm not credited to kill anybody, but I never retreat. We in September, October, like I say, we had a relief for about 10 days, and we was given a C box, I believe. No C ration, maybe a B box. Anyway, it's a box about like that. It had powdered potatoes. It had jelly in there, and something we never had before. And we got there, we had a little fire cooking that stuff, and we no more and got that partly down. Told to move out. We had to reinforce some of our troops. We had just been replaced, and the Germans decided to attack us. And they moved up with a tank, and the green troops didn't want no part of it. So they left.
So they left.
Left everything right in the Now they might have took the rifle, but they left pretty much everything there right in the foxhole. Well, we went up there, figured on reinforce somebody, see? And we got up to the peak of it, machine gun fire. Did we retreat? No. We kept on approaching the top of the hill, and we got to the foxhole. We got there. We stayed there the rest of the day. At nightfall, we knew what we was up against. When it started to get dark, the Germans started their engine from a tank. You couldn't see it, well, you could hear it.
What did it sound like, Ray?
Huh?
What did that sound like?
It sounded, my heart was just a beating like that. And knowing that if they shot their big gun, they probably could blow a hole right close to the edge, see, and maybe cover us probably with dirt. That's the possibility, see. But anyway, the guy was scared, the driver was scared enough that he retreated, backed out.
As you
We never saw him again.
As you went through all of these different situations, did you feel that you'd make it through, or did you feel that they was going to get you?
I never give that much thought.
You were just
I
there
was out there
do
to
a job.
survive the war. Yep.
So have you carried that attitude through life then, as you look back, that you was about able to survive anything they could throw at you?
Well, I suppose so. But right after the war, I took unemployment, and I was in Greenville then, and I had to go see him every time, and I wanted to get in the dye making trade, and so.
Did you do that?
Eventually,
Yes.
I got a job on Front Street.
Here in Grand Rapids?
Yes.
Yes.
A little machine shop on Front Street. Now the name escapes me. And I applied at General Motors for an apprenticeship. And finally, I believe it was in August, they called me.
Of 46 or 47?
30 on 36th Street.
No, the year.
Oh, yeah, 46, yeah.
46.
Uh-huh.
So you went to work for General Motors?
No, after I was at this machine shop,
Yeah.
and I gave them my week's notice, and I did my week out, and I went to General Motors, and I got my apprenticeship, and after my apprenticeship, I was supposed to go on nights, and I asked about the possibility of going on days. I wanted day work, and they says no, not unless somebody retires, or otherwise there's no possibility of day work. So I had finished my apprenticeship and got my card and so on, and I'd heard that Jarecki was hiring people, so I went down there and I asked him, I think it was Joe Gruska was the personnel man there, and he said, I can guarantee you a year. I said, I can't ask for any more than that. So I told the foreman at General Motors, he says, you'll be back. Johnny Brand. He told me one time that I'd finished a job, and I went and got Chuck Deere, told him I was finished a job, and I was ready to tackle something else. So I chased him over another bay, and I come back and I stood around, and the foreman come over and he says, haven't you had a job since you left that one? I said, no. He said, you know, I can send you out that door as fast as you come in. Yep. I says, I informed the leader, that I was out of a job. And I chased him over in another bay. I says, he knows it. Now I'm waiting for orders to start another job. Oh. When I left General Motors, that same individual, that same foreman, says, when you come back, he says, let me know and I'll see what you get in.
But you never went back.
Well, I went back there when they had a strike, quite a while. And I thought, well, I'll go back just to see how things have changed. So I went to the personnel man. I talked to one of the foremen there. He said, you're hired. He said, you come in at the second shift. He said, we'll finish up on your medical exam then. In the meantime, one of the doors opened and one of the nurses saw me that I recognized when I was there. She flew out and informed the personnel man that my mother gave him a hard time. While I was apprentice, something got in my eye.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, the doctor, he froze it. He got it out, and later on, there was still something in there. And he went and froze it again. Within maybe a couple hours or so, I don't remember. But anyway, at the time I did. And I was telling Mother what happened. And she never let me know, but she let them know. That was a bad practice, see?
Yeah.
To freeze it in such a
Right.
short time. See? And they never said nothing. I never said nothing. But the personnel man come back and told me, he said, do you remember you being sick? Sick? I don't know. He said, something with your eye? Oh, then I said, yeah, with my eye.
Yeah.
And well, then that brought it up. And he says, the doctor don't want to hire, see. I said, well, that's okay.
Sure.
So I told the one of the union guys at Jarecki, he said, they can't do that. I said, they did.
You did, huh?
Yeah.
Ray, I really appreciate your time,
Uh-huh.
and we'll talk some more. And if it's all right with you,
Yeah.
I'll come back and we'll copy some of the paperwork and things that you've got. We'll scan it so that
Yeah.
so that we do it right here, so that you won't lose any of
Okay,
that stuff.
okay. Yeah,
And if
okay.
that's okay with you,
Sure, sure.
we'll do some more and we'll
All
get
right.
together again.
Okay,
And I thank you very much for
Yeah.
your time.
yeah, that's all right.